In a world dominated by loud guitars and psychedelic rock, James Taylor quietly changed everything. With Sweet Baby James, he delivered a raw, heartfelt album that captured a generation's need for honesty and helped launch the singer-songwriter era. It wasn't meant to reshape pop music, but that's exactly what it did. Welcome back to the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast with your host, Mr. Laz Michaelides on this screen. On the screen beside me is Mr. Felipe Amarim. How you doing, bro?
Doing well, man, and you?
Good. Yeah, very well, man.
How's everyone going?
Good, yeah. It's been nice weather here in the UK, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Scorchingly hot.
It's time to start complaining about the heat instead of complaining about the cold.
There's a brief window, isn't there? There's about a week where we're like, this is fine. This is good. Yeah. And then after that, it all goes wrong. But yeah, anyway, James Taylor, Sweet Baby James. So a few album details, let's crack on. So the album was released on February 1st, 1970, recorded in December of 1969 at the Sunset Sound Studios in LA. The genre is folk rock and it comes in just under 32 minutes long, released on the Warner Brothers label and produced by Peter Asher. So I chose this album because James Taylor is a person I first heard when we were studying at uni. I remember one of the teachers showing us a song by him, and I thought, this is really great. This is just really, really nice songwriting. And he's got a lovely voice, but it sounds kind of country, it's kind of American-y, but at the same time, it sounds kind of poppy. So I'd never really ever been obsessed with James Taylor or leaned very much into his career. But I thought, looking a little bit into the history of him and what he's like and what he's done, it's probably worth putting an album in. So I looked and I thought, right, which one was the defining album? And apparently it was this one, Sweet Baby James. So that's why we're doing it today. What's your experience with James Taylor? Do you know anything about him?
I only knew the hits, like only the songs that everyone knows. So I wasn't familiar with the album either. But every time I've heard his voice, I had a good feeling about it. So it's one of those things you just don't put the time in to listen to a certain artist.
Yeah.
Especially in the last few years of my life, all I've been listening to is the very best of set list. So unless someone tells me to learn a song, I wouldn't listen to it because I don't have the time. So that's one of the reasons why we do this podcast, I think, so we can find stuff. Interesting stuff to listen to. Not all the albums are familiar to both of us, or maybe none of us would know the album. So yeah, in this case, I think I thought you knew the album really well. I thought it was something that you listened to in your childhood and stuff like that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, no, it was just one of those. Yeah, it was just one of those where I said, "What's the quintessential James Taylor album? What was pretty innovative? What did he pioneer doing this, that, and the other?" And this one came up. So I
knew that was the defining album, but I didn't know why. Now I know.
Right. Well, let's talk about why this album is so important. So, as a bit of background, what I've learned doing some research is actually James Taylor was not in a great place doing this album, was he? He was homeless, pretty much addicted to drugs, and he had some severe mental health issues. I read that he was actually staying. He didn't have a home. He was living on the producer's sofa or living with his guitarist in like his basement or something, which isn't really.
Or in the studio. So would alternate between those three places, staying at the producer's house or the guitar player's house or in the studio whilst recording the albums. And he came out of a not so successful album with Apple Records, like the Beatles record label, isn't it? So he recorded, he was backed by the Beatles for the first album, and it didn't go well. So he didn't tour the first album. Right, which is another reason for it not going that well.
Well, after the Apple failure, so to speak, he was signed by Warner Brothers, and at the time, you got to think this is 1970. They were a very small label at the time, so it didn't really have sort of the momentous name that they have nowadays. But yeah, I mean, that was just a quick little background. Did you have anything to add with regards to that?
Yes, the budget of the album. Do you know?
Ah, yes, yeah. Go for it.
It was let me double check the number. Is it the budget was $20,000?
Yeah,
$20,000, which would be in today's money something around $65,000, which is a really low budget for an artist to record an album with a band and producer and all that stuff. And the thing is, he only spent $7,600 out of all that budget. They made it even cheaper.
Yeah.
So that is there's a song written about the $20,000, because actually he was promised to get £20,000 at the end of the recording, and he said, when I get the money, that's going to keep me going until the album starts to sell and the tours start to come.
Yeah.
So that's why the last song is called Suite for 20 Gs, isn't it?
Yeah, because I read that he had one more song to write and he just couldn't think. He had a bunch of different ideas. So he had 3 different songs or song ideas going on, and he said, "I'll screw it. I'm just going to put them all together and we'll call it a suite for 20G because when I do this, I've completed it and I get the 20Gs." So yeah, very funny. But yeah, so where should we go? Well, do you know what? Let's try and segue sensibly. We'll talk about the production because obviously what he did so well is keeping the costs low, and half of that is down to the fact that we have a very nice, simple production going on. Stripped back arrangements, and what I found really interesting about most, or let's say, majority of songs, when there's other instruments in there, like you've got some horns, double bass, drums, all that sort of stuff, the songs are not busy. They're not unbusy. There's lots going on, but at the same time, you are sat there thinking, I know I'm listening to a singer-songwriter now.
Yeah, nothing gets in the way of the guitar and vocals. It sounds like, even if it's not louder in the mix, it sounds like everyone else in the arrangement is just providing a background support for the sounds of guitar and vocals. It's still
little embellishments here and there.
Yeah, we said remember when we did the Bob Dylan album, which is essentially acoustic guitar and vocals. This album could have been like that. It didn't need anything else. That's the thing. Obviously, the arrangements make the song sound more powerful, and also sometimes it can get a bit boring if it's just acoustic guitar and vocals. Isn't it? It doesn't matter how good the song is, but the songs exist regardless of who is playing in it and regardless of the arrangements. Having said that, we obviously have a lot to say about the musicians and what they did, but I think it's still about his vocals and guitar, and I think the producer kind of captured that. Like, this is like a band. It sounds to me like a band in a living room.
Yes,
and it was exactly like the production started, because I think he tried one of the. Is it the single Fire and Rain? Yeah, I think they've tried that song previously for the other album as a full band and didn't quite work, like with a heavier arrangement with more stuff. And then with this album, they were rehearsing the producer's flat or house, and he said, like, the neighbors are going to be upset, so we need to play with brushes instead of sticks. So they started to play quieter to suit the environment. So I think that sound is in an entire album somehow. That concept of a band rehearsing in a living room instead of a recording studio.
Yeah, that's a great little story. And as you just touched on, I think, we've got to credit the producer, Peter Asher, who really had this light touch that he was just putting on the album. In coming from the 60s, the late 60s as well, when you have things like, Phil Spector's The Wall of Sound production, which is just layers upon layers, making everything sound big and, really perfect, well produced. There's no problem with that, but heavy sounds, big sounds coming from the last couple of Beatles albums. Zeppelin, Deep Purple are doing their thing. You're getting really hard-hitting sounds in rock and popular music. And it was pretty unique at the time to go back to that stripped-back minimalist kind of production.
Yeah, exactly, because it's the opposite of what the 60s were. When the Beatles stopped touring to just do albums, they could focus entirely on, like, let's just arrange songs in the most complex way. And obviously you have at the time, you still have like some progressive rock bands starting at that time, which is like really over the top in many ways. But he totally got away from what was going on with the Beach Boys and the Beatles, and even the Rolling Stones with some of their more polished albums. So I think what he did was like, this is not rock and roll, this is not the 60s, and let's like make it about the song.
And with that comes what this album is probably most famous for, which is the birth of singer-songwriter era, where we start finally seeing musicians and songwriters focus on emotional storytelling, heartfelt lyrics, introspection, as opposed to maybe some rock and roll stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, And when you say singer-songwriter, that makes me think immediately of open mic nights,
Yeah,
it
gives us the jitters. Yeah,
which is kind of a nightmare most of the time.
We're
Sorry to
used to,
anyone who got.
well, no, that's fine. Yeah, I think I make no apologies because, well, I mean, we went to a university, and we're not shaming singer songwriters, not at all. Anyone who has a creative output and they put their feelings and their experiences into a song, I think it's something to celebrate. But there's just so many now because anyone now can have a YouTube channel, you can make a Spotify profile, you can do this, you can put any song you want into these online platforms and call yourself a singer-songwriter, which is fine. But I think what we're alluding to in this sense is going back end of the 60s, start of the 70s. Well, actually, there's an argument that Bob Dylan was sort of the first one, because what it was more about was about the story you're telling, a man or a woman and his guitar or instrument, putting stories alongside music. And like I said, I think Bob Dylan was the initial catalyst that set it off, but Dylan was political. And on top of that, his stories, like I said, weren't necessarily so personal. They were more kind of folky or, as I said, political. So this is where we started to see a new kind of era usher in, because what's so important about this album is how vulnerable and personal the songwriting and the lyrics are from James Taylor, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. When you make that comparison with the modern singer-songwriter scene, which I find funny, singer-songwriter being a genre. It's like a guitar player backing vocalist. It's not a genre. It's what you do. Anyway, because it doesn't really define what it is, in my opinion. And I think James Taylor wasn't trying to define a style or anything. But the problem nowadays, as I said, is like everyone is doing it. Like since probably Ed Sheeran came about with the same, like bringing that concept back into mainstream music and media. Everyone wants to be the new James Taylor or the new Ed Sheeran. The thing is, when you strip the song down to acoustic guitar and vocals and you're talking about your personal experiences, there's a fine line there between being too personal and being capable of communicating with other people's feelings, which I think that's where James Taylor is really good at. You got to leave a little bit of room for interpretation. If the lyrics are too much about yourself and extremely direct to the point, then you can't make it universal,
relatable.
Relatable, exactly, and universal in a way. And I think he did that really, really well with all those songs. Also, here's the thing, I see this sort of music as a movie with a low budget. Imagine a movie with 5 or 6 actors and one location. Right. The only thing that can save that movie is a really, really good script.
Yeah.
So if you want to be, the thing is, everyone's like, I'm going to sing about my feelings, pick a guitar and play a song. Right. Your story has to be really good, because there's no riffs, there's no beat, there's no, it's just you and your guitar.
Yeah.
You're not bringing a band, you're not creating a style, you're not arranging the song. It's if you want to make it that simple in a way, the story needs to be excellent and well told, and your vocals have to be really unique, which is the case.
That's a great point. And I think if you look, so what I was going to talk about next is how as you said, what this became was essentially a commercial breakthrough for intimacy and for, let's say, vulnerability, of putting your feelings, your story, and your issues on the line.
Yeah.
And because of this is why it kind of showed, I think the perfect song is Fire and Rain, because it's proof that mass audiences were kind of ready for this introspective, confessional kind of songs. And this opened up the pathway for Joni Mitchell, Jackson Browne, Cat Stevens in the UK, Elton John in the UK as well, just for these people to properly wear their hearts on their sleeves and say to the audiences, they're doing their thing in rock. That's fine, with loud guitars, psychedelic stuff, even the progressive rock. But you can get away with, let's say, I don't want to say bad lyrics because I don't want to have a go at rock, but you can get away with, let's say, non-relatable lyrics.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking Deep
Or
Purple,
even
Highway Star.
generic lyrics.
I'm just thinking Deep Purple.
Silly lyrics, right?
Yeah, Deep Purple, Highway Star. Not everyone has a car, so you can't relate. Not everyone loves their car, so you can't relate. That's fine, great song. But on the other side, you've got these singer-songwriters basically saying, I'm going to just open up to you. And I think that this album is one of those that was credited with igniting that passion in people to say, do you know what? It's okay to put our feelings in here. If I'm a drug addict, it's okay to sing about my experiences. And we saw this go on and on. You know, we just did Alice in Chains a few episodes ago, where we know that the lead singer was plagued with drug addiction. And so,
but they wouldn't say in the lyrics, I'm singing about my drug addiction.
No, it would be a story. Yeah, it would be a story, some metaphors.
Singing about suffering, so you can be suffering for different reasons. So you're still going to relate to that. Yeah. There's an interesting quote from James Taylor from 2007 in an interview. He said, I write things for personal reasons. And then in some cases, it can be a shared experience. So that's it. That defines what this is.
Yeah. Completely. Well, in that vein, let's move on and talk about the lyrics then, because I know you're always the lyrics man, so I'm going to hand this one over to you. But just from my part, what I'd say is I think it was good to see, and I said it already, the transition, because the 60s with the Vietnam War, with the with lots of racial tension going on from the back end of the 50s in the USA, we saw lots of political movements, especially around the folk music. And you kind of had, if you took folk music, added political lyrics, I think it's probably quite a simple way to just say that's how we arrived at the first singer-songwriter, Bob Dylan. Not just him, obviously, there's a few others, but that image.
The first really relevant one.
Yes, And then through the 60s, he was sort of piling on doing his politics, doing his protests and all that sort of stuff. And then, as I just mentioned, we took that hop from the end of the 60s into the 70s where people started singing about themselves. So do you want to talk us through some lyrics?
Yeah, that would be interesting. You made a really interesting point, because like James Taylor's lyrics in this album, they're not political at all. There's nothing in the album that makes it belong to the end of 60s and 70s, like specifically.
Yeah,
it could have been written now, and it's because it's about human feelings and how you deal with other people in the world. There's nothing to do. So it's basically, it's looking inside you instead of looking at the world, which I think, in a way, gives people a break from the normal sort of stuff. Even nowadays, we still have a lot of political music and rock music, especially. And it's interesting. Like, I think artists should sing about whatever they want to sing, but in the end, I think Dave Grohl said something interesting, that he doesn't like talking about his political views or whatever, because he wants people to come to his gig and forget about the world, forget about the politics, forget about all this stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of famous rock singers and writers would say that as well. So you have, I believe it's really good that we have both in music. We have really political stuff and really personal stuff, and so. In regards to the lyrics, like some of these stories, like Sweet Baby James, such a beautiful story. It's his older brother's son. It's called James, as a tribute to him. So basically, said he named his son after James Taylor. So he was driving to his brother's house to see the baby, and he said the melody and the lyrics just came to his head, and he was singing the song in the car, going to his brother's place. But he said at the time, essentially he says, at the time I had really good memory. So he went back home after meeting the family and his brother and his son. He went back home and wrote the song and recorded it straight away. And the final arrangement is not far from what he first had in his mind. So it's like basically, and has that waltz kind of vibe. It's a bit of a cowboy song, a bit of a lullaby.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, what I love about this is that you're right. Obviously, the at its core, the lyrical concept is about his. What did you say? His brother's son. So his nephew.
Brother's son. Yeah.
His nephew. Yeah. But to make it more relatable, because not everyone has a nephew called James, he wrote it in the style of like an American cowboy ballad, with a story and a narrative and imagery to take you through the song. And I just thought that was such a clever way of combining traditional aspects of this American folk music, but making it personal, which is what we said he's already done.
And I think every kid wanted to be a cowboy at some point, or a superhero, something like that. So it's super cool the way he tells the story.
And I think I was going to discuss Fire and Rain next.
Yes,
because the song's quite a heavy one. It discusses depression, addiction, mental health, personal tragedy, and I think what's interesting about a song like that and how heavy it goes in is that, again, for the time, for 1970, this was unusual. This was rarely handled in what we call pop music at the time.
Yeah, and it is, and it's interesting how he delivers the song in a way that doesn't feel heavy. That's my opinion.
No, great point.
I didn't feel like any moment in this album is low, like in a way, like doesn't make you feel down in any way, my opinion. So
I completely agree.
So you can't feel the blues out of listening to this album. That's my view on it. It's there's always something cheerful about the way they arrange or perform the songs, or his vocal delivery is so soft that doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't bring any sadness to the songs at any point.
I completely agree. I feel like it's a person just talking about their experiences, and he's not trying to say feel sorry for me or this is the lifestyle you should lead, but this is me telling you my story.
Yeah, and the thing with Fire and Rain, the first, he says there's 3 different stories, but the most interesting one for me is the first verse when he's talking about the death of a friend. So one of his best friends, she committed suicide, and his close friends didn't tell him because he was really excited about signing with the label and preparing the album. I think it was this album, not the first one. I'm not quite sure. I think when he signed with Warner Bros. And he was preparing the album and he was focused on doing it. And they didn't tell him. And 6 months later, they told him.
Wow.
And then it's like writing about something that happened so long ago, but is hurting you now.
Yeah.
And I think that feeling is everywhere in the albums. Like when he talks about sadness, it feels like it's so further into your past that it doesn't affect you now. You're just like going through those feelings and explaining those feelings, but it feels to me like he wasn't sad at the moment he was writing the album, or not really as depressed as he was in the past. So
great point. I think what this does is this essentially I think this humanized pop stars.
Yeah.
And really gave them a platform and a basis to say, look, we are just like you, because rock stars, look at who was around just before coming. You got Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, gods, rock icons, guitar gods, who people probably thought, wow, with all the money they've got and with the rock star life they lead, how can they have problems? And little do you know that behind the scenes, you've got John Bonham with his alcoholism. You've got James Taylor with his drug addiction. You've got Lane Staley from Alice in Chains with his heroin addiction. We don't always see on the surface the life that a performer. If we want to take it to the next extreme, let's talk about Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell from Linkin Park and Soundgarden. People who on the surface have it all. Money, rock star lifestyle. They play great music, but beneath, they're hurting. And I think this was one of the first albums to especially in this kind of American pop folk scene, that told us it's okay to not be okay. And I'm going to tell you in the form of songs.
Well put, man. But apart from that, there's something about the way he tells the stories. He's not moaning about anything. It's not like, oh, look at me, I'm suffering, or it's just like, this is what happened. I'm telling you the story. It's like, for me, it's like watching a movie, right?
Yeah.
The main character in the movie doesn't look at you and asks for help or whatever. It's just the story. You're just seeing the story in front of your eyes, and that's what it is.
Absolutely.
And it is what it is. It's good and it's bad. And I think, again, the melodies and the arrangements never let the songs feel too depressing.
Well, so there's
one more lyric I want to mention. Sunny Skies, the third song, has got a jazzy beat, super cool and super beautiful melody. And it sounds like a positive thing, but it's kind of sarcastic. Sunny Skies, the character, is someone who is depressed. It might be himself when he was in hospital. He put himself into the hospital. He went there to check in as someone who needed help.
Oh, right.
Was no one sent him to the hospital. He said, I need help, I'm depressed. And Sunny Skies is this character who's got no friends, but the melody is so like cheerful and beautiful, and there's a jazzy beat, it swings, it's super cool. But like, when you hear the lyrics, like, this guy's got a terrible life.
That's
he's
the
got
problem.
no friends. He's got, he's crying at night, doesn't even know why, and all that stuff. But I love the way he wrote the song, almost in a sarcastic way, almost like I'm taking the piss out of my own suffering in a way. So like I'm making, it's not comedy, but it's like I'm trying to look at the bright side of this and not taking my suffering so seriously in a way.
Have you heard the phrase, if I don't laugh, I'll cry?
Yeah.
And it's like that, if I don't laugh about my experience, I'll cry about it. But you've put us perfectly into the next section where we're going to talk about the music of the album. Now, initially, I wanted to talk about the genre blend, but actually it turns out as it kind of expands, there's more to this than just that. So first of all, I'll talk about the blend of genres because I like what he's done here, because just like every other great singer-songwriter we talked about, Elton John, one, personally for me, Cat Stevens, Elvis Presley, I know not really a singer-songwriter, but it's how they take their influences and blend them to offer audiences a new style, which is essentially that new style became American singer-songwriter. But he's got folk in this, that's obvious from the guitar playing. He's got some country elements as well from the guitar playing. There's some blues in there, like 2 songs have a full-on blues chord progression. There's some soft rock in Fire and Rain, and then there's some gospel as well. And I just loved how we got a little bit of a taste for each thing in the first bunch of songs. Song 1 is like a cowboy ballad. Song 2 is gospel. Song 3 was so Beatles poppy to me. Sunny Skies, it kind of just reminded me of Getting Better. And then song 4 is a blues.
Good Day Sunshine as well, remind me of
that as well, and then the song 4 of this album is a blues, and I think he just does it so beautifully. He really gently blends them to, as I said before, offer the audiences a nice alternative to this hard-hitting rock music that's going on in the UK and America on this side. And it's also different to the country and folk that's going on here. He's going to take a little bit of the instrumentation here. He's going to take some guitar playing from here, put his own personal lyrics in, and offer them a new platform, a new medium, some singer-songwriter music.
And he did it really well, because it's not like it did in a natural way, blending things he actually liked, and he, a lot of it reminds me of the band. And he's been compared to them in that way.
Yeah.
The band. Gotta say this every
time. And another aspect of this that I think gets lost in the first 1 or 2 times you listen to the album is how intricate his guitar playing is. How brilliant it is, isn't it? He's got this sort of finger picking style, which doesn't, again, it's just done so smoothly, so effortlessly, so subtly that you don't always pick up on it until I watched a few videos of him doing these songs live. And you just see his right hand kind of like, moving like a spider. There's just all bits going on. And hold on, like he's singing, and his melodies are not straightforward. I'd say they're simple in terms of, I don't know, if you're placing notes on a manuscript, they're simple melodies to look at, but actually the rhythm of the melodies don't always match with the rhythm of the guitar or the rhythm of the band.
It sounds like there's someone playing guitar and someone singing. It's not the sort of guitar player that most singer-songwriters will do. Just strumming or keeping the beats whilst you sing.
So I really love that you've got sort of technically challenging playing, but sounding effortless and soothing, and half of that again has to be his voice. He's saying, I'm just putting the music here for this background feeling for you guys. But make sure you pay attention to the stories I'm telling over here.
And it sounds like everything they added to the songs was added because it needed to be there. There's nothing over the top. There's nothing that it was overproduced or didn't have a place in the song. There's an interesting quote from him as well from 1994. He said, "We just went in and did it. At the time, I didn't know how to think about things like the marketplace or what people were listening to." That's really cool.
That sums the album up.
Again, the musical freedom we keep talking about, that's part of rock and roll. So it's not a rock and roll album, but it's got that rock and roll attitude. This is what I believe music should be like. That's what I want to do. and I don't understand about the market. I don't understand about how to sell an album or what people are looking for. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. For those listening and watching, down in the description and the show notes, you have a Spotify playlist that we've made. We do it for every episode, and all the songs we mention, although we actually haven't mentioned any other than this album, including the album, go into that playlist. So if we mention a song and you want to have a listen to the song, click that link in the description, then it'll take you to the playlist, and you can play as we mention a song, and you can go back and listen. I mean, is there anything else you want to say to finish off?
Yeah, he's got great hair. That's one thing that must be said.
It doesn't look so good now. He's kind of got
but he's honest though. He's honest now. The hair's gone. He's not pretending to have one. There's so many. We should do a whole episode on rock stars that wear wigs.
Oh yeah.
So the hair system is something that has been around in the rock industry for a long time. James Taylor is an honest man in his music and with his hair as well. So it's no hair is gone. It doesn't pretend to have it. But yeah, great hair. That's what I want to say.
Very good, very good. I feel like we've spoken about the album in a very broad sense. We haven't really sort of gone into any songs in particular. I mean, which ones were there ones you liked more than others?
The last one really surprised me, this Sweet for 20G, because I thought if you piece 3 unfinished songs together just to fill the album, it's like, all right, that's going to be like, that's not going to be a hit for sure, and it's literally just a filler, and I don't think it sounds like that. It really surprised me. And there's more participation of the band in that one than in any other song in a way. So it gets really funky towards the end. So I think that song specifically, you were about to finish the album and it gets funky, so you want to get up and start dancing. It's like, yeah, it's funky, and then that's it, done. That's the end of the album.
And then it goes back to the beginning. And
and if you loop the album, it gets quieter again. So that really surprised me. Also, his version of "Oh Susanna," which kind of a folk American song. That's an interesting story about that song. It was written by a guy called Stephen Foster, who was the first full-time songwriter in America. The song was written in 1848.
Wow.
So old one. So but I think again, every song, the order of the songs, the instrumentation, everything is just, in my opinion, absolutely perfect throughout the whole album.
I agree. It's a really, really great singer-songwriter album, and it doesn't surprise me that if you tell me this is the one that kicked it all off. It sounds raw, it sounds authentic, it doesn't sound like it's been influenced by anything. It sounds like as we've just discussed, which is why this is so significant. This is one man who's decided to put his thoughts, emotions, feelings, life experiences, problems on top of some music, and it's created a whole sort of subgenre, if you like. Just to quickly talk about some accolades. I mean, it's not. Had you heard of this album before?
Yes.
Not listened to it, but you've heard the name.
Yes.
Okay. Still, I had before, but it's never lumped in with those big albums. It's never lumped in with Dark Side of the Moon, with Sgt. Pepper. Maybe it deserves to, maybe it doesn't, whatever. It still comes up in discussions about the quality of the album. So, for example, VH1 named it the 77th greatest album of all time. Rolling Stone put it 104 in the 500 greatest albums of all time. But this is a sentence I wanted to talk about. So William Ruhlman from AllMusic, he captured for me the essence of the album really nicely in one sentence. Taylor's sense of wounded hopelessness reflects the pessimism and desperation of the 1960s hangover that was the early 70s. It struck a chord with music fans, especially because of its attractive mixture of folk, country, gospel, and blues, all of them carefully understated and distanced. It's nice, isn't it? Especially
that really well said.
The hangover of the 60s. I love that word, or I love that description. You know, the 60s was tough. There was lots of good stuff about the 60s, but a lot of negatives as well, especially in America. So the hangover of it into people actually saying, let's talk about our experiences. Let's talk about what went wrong.
Yeah, it was the 60s were really intense. So the album came in a moment where I think it's like having a break from it.
Yeah, and we kind of said the same with American Pie, the album, didn't we? Don McLean. It's interesting. Anyway, should we finish off with my monologue?
Yes, please.
Yeah, excellent, cool. So, Sweet Baby James opened the door to what audiences could expect from this new wave of singer-songwriters, defying the loud, experimental, in-your-face conventions of 60s psychedelia and rock, favouring instead the soft, introspective mood and vulnerability of a man and his acoustic guitar. Whilst the songs are short and simple, the music is not. His guitar technique is pretty sublime, and he masters the finger-picking beautifully, whilst his chord progressions are far from conventional, often venturing away from where you'd imagine or be used to them going. As we have said, whenever we do episodes about singer-songwriters, the blend of genres is key in nailing down influences, yet never commits to just one. The first 5 songs span a variety of styles, from cowboy ballads to blues, from Beatles-esque pop to gospel. Yet the music always feels like it belongs to no one except James. This is thanks to the production of Peter Asher, who, despite doing really well producing and mixing the instruments, exudes an element of simplicity in this. James's vocals first, instruments second, putting the lyrics, melody, and story at the forefront of the music. This album's accolades are not as momentous as other big-name albums of the time, but it played a crucial role in opening up mainstream audiences to reflective, sad, stripped-back music that they were unused to hearing, paving the way for singer-songwriters all over the world to expand on this beautifully introspective Pandora's box that James Taylor opened.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
He did start something, didn't he?
It's a beautiful album, isn't it? And I'm going to go ahead and assume what your answer is going to be when I say any final words, because I want to say it this time. Go listen to the album, because that's always your final word.
Just listen to it. Listen to an album. I think especially if you like classic rock or heavy music in general, or anything that's got a lot of instrumentation, a lot of drumming or loud guitars. This is a good break from that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah, completely.
And it's not. There's no way you're going to get bored with it with this album. It's so well played, and lyrics and vocals are absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. Well, thank you guys again for joining us for another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. If you are listening to us on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon, do us a favor, scroll down, hit 5 stars, write us a little sentence. It does the world of good for us because we get put higher up in the algorithms and we get seen by more people. It takes about 20 seconds of your time, but does the world of good for us. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date with our latest content.
Yeah, thanks for being with us one more time. I don't share anything on social media, so do it for me, please. So thanks for being with us. Keep on rocking, everyone, and don't do anything I wouldn't do.
Don't do anything I wouldn't do, including use social media. But yeah, and as usual, guys, you will take care. We'll see you next time, and long live rock and roll.